Hello, club members. I'm so excited because we are going to start our project, our big project, for the month of June and maybe a week or two in July. But we are going to be making a lapbook / mini album, hopefully / junk journal. I've been working on this for a while. We're going to be using the collection that I got from Little Birdie called Celebrate Life. Now, as you know, I used a few pieces on this when I was creating my little embellishment book. But I have plenty of flowers and papers and stuff left over. A little chipboard piece that says Special Moments on it. So this is what we're going to be using. But before we get started with that, we have to put the structure of the book together. Now, the structure of the book is going to be created with chipboard. And I've already cut the chipboard, and this is medium weight chipboard. If you're lucky enough, you might find this at Michael's or Hobby Lobby or some other places. I got mine from Scrapbooking with Me, and it's very reasonably priced. And I've had this for a while, but I'm sure they still carry it. So we're going to be needing like 5 pieces for our structure, our base of the structure. And the first piece is an 8 by 10. So this is 10 and then 8. The length of our lap book is going to be 8 inches. Then we're going to need a piece that is 8 by 8. Just one. Then you're going to need 2 pieces that are 8 by 1.5 inches. And you're going to need 1 piece that's 8 by 4. So then to put our book together, now I like to use cardstock that's not quite as thick. Like this right here is a little bit thicker cardstock. This is 85 pounds. So I'm going to be using 65-pound cardstock to wrap our structure in. It's a little less likely to crack, and that is what we're going to be using. So we're going to take 3 pieces, and we're going to join this together. You lay these out of the way. So, and you're going to need this length. I'm going to be using some 1/2 inch double-sided tape to put my pages together. And I'm just going to start on the edge and run it along and stick our pages together. This is going to wrap our chipboard. And I am doing it in black because I think it makes the pink pop. Find a pair of scissors. Okay. And we're going to give this a good burnish so that the tape will stay down. Now, a trick to wrapping is just pull your little tape just apart, just a little bit, right like that. Take a sheet of your paper and then line it up first. So I'm going to line this up with the top so we can join it together, make sure our paper is even before I glue it all the way down. And then we're going to make sure it's even with the bottom. Okay, and we're going to press that down and then just pull the tape out. Well, it usually works. Of course, I'm on camera, so it's not going to work all the way down for me. I'm just going to go back up here, lift this up, and then pull. Make sure it's back level with the bottom of the page because you don't want your paper to be uneven when you go to wrap. Okay, so we're going to connect one more piece. And you can use wet glue if you like. For the most part, I use wet glue to do about everything, but I'm using tear tape just on this part right here. Okay. Burnish that down good. And you wanted to give it a good burnish just to make sure that it is stuck very well. Then we're going to take our other piece of paper and line it up with the top. And before we give it a good stick, we're going to make sure it lines up with the bottom. Press that down. And very gently pull this out so we don't rip the tape. And then seal that down. So this is going to give us a long enough piece to make sure that we have all our chipboard covered. And we'll have some left over that we'll be cutting out. But okay, first I'm going to take my 8x10 piece and I'm going to put it in the middle. I'm just going to kind of line that up in the middle. And I am going to use wet glue on this. Well, I'm going to use Fabri-Tac. Matter of fact, I think I'm going to use Fabri-Tac and tear tape. Let me put my tear tape on here first. I do that sometimes. I use tear tape and wet glue just to give it extra, make sure it stays extra well. And I usually use wider tape. I have a 1-inch tape which eludes me right now. So I'm just going to put this on the edges just to make sure that our edges are well covered. And then I'll use glue on the rest of it. But as doing any album or that you're using chipboard, it's really good to make sure that you get a good foundation. Okay, let me just get my bone folder and burnish these down. Make sure it's stuck good. My little picky tool. Okay. We are going to run some glue over here, over our tear tape as well. Now normally I would just use regular glue for this, but I'm out. So I'm going to go ahead and use my Fabri-Tac, which will give it a good adherence. Okay. Now I'm just going to take this and line it up sort of in the middle here. Make sure I have a good 1 inch from each side. Okay. Now I'm going to take my bone folder and run really well over this just to make sure it has a good adherence. And that's important. That's what you want to do. You want to make sure that this is down really well. And I'm going to turn it over from this side and run my bone folder over this way too. Okay? Now the next two pieces we're going to put down are our little 1.5 inch pieces. And they are going to go beside the 8.5 by 10. Now, by doing this, this creates a spine, and it's right where we joined our pieces at, our pieces of paper. So that's going to help us to get a good foundation there and cover that seal part up. Now we're going to put these together about an eighth of an inch apart. If you're not sure, you can take your piece of chipboard and lay it down like this. And that's about how much room we want between each piece. Now I think I'm just going to use wet glue on this. But you do want to get a good amount and make sure you get your edges really well. Because this is your foundation and you don't want it coming up, of course. Okay, so let me show you again. We're going to take this, I believe about this much. It's about 1/8 of an inch. And I'm just going to kind of eyeball it now. I'm going to lay that down. Make sure it's even. You want to align the top with the bottom because you don't want it uneven. I'm going to stick this in here. Make sure that's butted up really nice there. And that leaves the space that I need right there. The only thing about using Fabri-Tac, it takes a minute to join. So you just want to leave it sitting there for a minute and making sure these are even. It does give you some wiggle room. But you just want to make sure that the top and the bottom are flush before that glue grabs on. You can always take your piece of chipboard, lay it in there. Make sure that that's flush. That gives you a good piece. And we're just going to take our bone folder and roll up and down on it, just to make sure that it has a good adherence. Then we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Going to put our glue on here. And if a little bit of the glue squishes out, it's okay because this is going to be covered up anyway. Okay, we're going to do the same thing as we did on this side. Put our chipboard down. Make sure the bottom is aligned with the top. Put it flush in there. And then use your bone folder to go over it. Whoops. I squished that together by wiping glue. But since it's wet, it's quite easy for us to get our chipboard back in there and even that out again, because it'll move a minute or two. There we go. Okay. So let that sit for a second. Hold it as we're rubbing it down. Okay. So each of those are about 1/8 of an inch away, and that's what we want. So when we start bending it, it'll have room to bend. Alright. Then we're going to take our 8x8 piece, this piece right here, and we're going to put it on this side of the page. We're going to leave it about 1/8 of an inch like the rest of it. Okay. And I am going to use tape on the edges on this one. This is a bigger piece. Okay, so I already had put my glue on there. So this is 8x8, so we don't really have to measure what side we're putting on here. We just need to make sure that we're level with the top and the bottom, which I am, and we have enough space. So I've done this image. I can pretty much do it without measuring it, just kind of by eyeballing it. But like I said, if you need to make sure you have the proper amount of space in there, use a piece of chipboard, same thickness, and that's about how much room you want to leave between each piece. And I'm just going to make sure we have a good adherence here. Okay, and then we're going to move over and we're going to put our 8x4 piece on this side, on the right side. So I'm going to go ahead and tape it up and glue it down, and I'll be back. Okay, so I have that all glued down. I'm going to turn it around so that you can see what it should look like if it was facing you. So to start with, you should have your 8x8 on the right side, your 1.5 inch piece, your 8x10, 1.5 inch piece, and then your 8x4 should be all the way over on your left hand side. But I'm going to turn this back around for me so I can see what I'm doing. Alright, now we're going to start wrapping our album. But before I do, you'll notice I have quite a bit left over here. So I'm just going to cut some of it off. I'm going to cut pretty close to almost all this black part over here. I'm going to leave about an inch, inch and a half. Doesn't have to be perfect when you're cutting it. And I'm going to cut off just a tiny little piece over here on this side. Trying to get it straight across, but okay. So this is what we have, and what we're going to do is start massaging this paper up. We don't want it to crack on us when we cover it, so you're going to start working the paper by bending it up like this. Just kind of creasing it with your hands. The same with the side over here. Just kind of creasing it. And I apologize, I know you can't see all of it, but all I'm doing is going around the edges, just bending the paper up. Now, before I start doing this, I am going to cut off a piece of this black paper. And what I'm going to do is, I know that you may not be able to see the line. I'm not going to use a pencil. I'm going to use my little bone folder. And I'm just putting a piece of chipboard right up here against this corner. This is going to tell me how much to cut off, because I want to leave about 1/8 of an inch from there so that our corners will be covered, but at the same time we take out so much of the bulk from it. So I'm just going to lay that there. Now they do make a tool for this, and I know that you can get it on Amazon, but why pay for a tool when you can just simply use what you have and get it done for free? So I'm just going to go around the line like this. And because this is a bone folder and this is black paper, it shows up. So all I'm going to do is go down here where I made the little marking, and I'm going to cut those corners off. Okay, so I have all my corners cut off, and all I'm going to do is take my little thumbnail here and push this little corner in on each side. That keeps it from being so sharp, like a little sharp edge. Just kind of push those in. Alright, now I'm going to go up on the side first. I'm just going to pull my side in, because remember we massaged it, so we should get a nice little edge there without cracking the paper. I'm going to roll my bone folder over and just make sure I got a good crease there. Okay, and then I'm going to take my tear tape on the edges only and run this across my paper just on the very edge. Okay, and then I'm going to take my glue and make sure that I get it really good against the edge of the chipboard. I'm just going to put a little bit here. Okay. And take my tape off. Now, instead of going from the end and like that, we're going to start in the middle. Okay? Start in the middle and work your way out to flattening those pieces down. And then take your bone folder and run over it. And you're going to take your bone folder and just kind of run through those edges right there, between the pieces right here. Okay, that's going to help the paper bend. Okay, and we're going to do the same thing on the other side. Okay, again, we're going to pull up from the side in the middle, start our through the middle and work out to the edges. Okay, take your bone folder, run over it, make sure it's nice and tight, and then go through the curves. Don't press too hard because you don't want to cut through your paper, but you do want to keep those indentations there because that's going to help your book fold up. Okay. Now we're going to do the same thing on the other side. We're going to fold these down and wrap them up. Okay. So I'm going to go ahead and do that and I'll be back. Okay, so now we have our whole thing covered. And don't worry about the seams. This is all going to be covered up. So you need to let the glue dry just a bit. And I'm just going to kind of reinforce these a little bit. We are going to cover up our middle part here. But I want to get a good edge on the ones that we have now, so that when we lay our cover sheet down, it'll be a little bit easier. So when we fold this up, it's going to look like this. This is going to fold up, this is going to fold over, and this will fold over, and that'll be our lap book. Now we're going to take another piece of paper, and we're going to cover our inside up with that. And I think we'll probably only need like maybe 2 sheets to do that. I'm trying not to make these videos very long, but I really want to go through the whole process with my club members because you guys are so supportive of me and I really appreciate it. So I'm going to go about 6.5 on here by 12 and see. That's perfect. We're just wanting to cover this middle part up in here because we're going to add some other stuff on everywhere except for this end. And we will add something to this end, but excuse me, because this is going to be our flap of our closing flap of our lap book, I'm not going to add a whole lot of here, but I am going to add paper to this. So let me cut one more sheet down. So you do need a good stack of black paper. And like I said, this is lightweight cardstock. This is, I think, 65-pound weight. And you really don't want any heavier than that to wrap your book because the chances to crack are really greater when you do that. So all I'm going to do is add this on here. And then I'll be back. Okay, so I have the middle part covered, and I'm just going to go over the lines again, just to make sure that we can fold. Sorry for the interruption, guys. You know how the doggies are. Okay, so we're going to keep going like this. And then we are going to start seeing if we can fold our album up now. And I usually use a ruler, but I'm just going to use a piece of chipboard. Put it right here. Start folding against that line. This help bends it so that we don't crack. Okay. So this is how our book is going to go. Now I am going to put some magnets here when we get ready to put our paper on it. But the next thing we're going to do is, and this is the last thing for this video, is we're going to cut a piece of paper to go on our 8x10 part. Okay, so I'm just going to use a plain piece of pink paper. And we're going to cut our paper at 9 7/8. Make sure you hang on to your scraps. By 7 7/8. And 7/8, just by chance, is the line between 8 and 7 1/4. You have two little lines which are 16ths, and then the biggest line is an 1/8. So you're going to put that there, and we're going to cut that by 7 7/8 by 9 7/8. And then we're going to hang on to our scraps because we'll probably be using those. And that is going to go down in the middle of our book. So let's glue that down. Now, like I said, this is just our structure. We are going to be building on this base to add our other parts to it, to turn it into a lap book and an album. And we're all going to be building off of this base here and this side here. This is our closure flap, so we don't want to put a whole lot on that. Okay, so we're just going to line this up in the middle. Just kind of eyeballing it. And we have our first piece laid down. Now I went ahead and covered this up because, like I said, we're building off the base, and we will need this to be covered. So until next time, guys, we got a good start on our lap book, mini album, junk journal. And I'll be back in a couple of days with part 2.